Hello, my name is Cornelius Conway. I'm here again, second season to another season of Medicine Makers on behalf of the I Am Abel Foundation. We had a great season last year. We had some very good interviews with some medical directors from several schools, admission staffs, several physicians, physicians to be, obviously, and it's going to be a great season this year as well. So, but before I start any of that, I need to introduce the CEO, the president, the director of the I Am Abel Foundation, Dr. Lamenta and Corey. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you, Corey.
And you know what? We have a very good episode today, but before we get into that, we're going to talk about some of the stuff we have going on. We had a very good year this past year. We just came off of the gala. We had the conference. One of the conferences was held this year at Rush University. And we had some great speakers there. We kind of laid down the tracks of pharmacy school, obviously medical school, nursing school. And it was a blueprint there. So we're going to have it again this year as well, this upcoming year.
Sure.
But, what we have coming up next is going to be even more. I think it's going to be, something a little bit more, different.
Super excited.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. We have this 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So one of the things that's coming up for I Am Abel Foundation, but I want to echo what you said even before, we have had an exciting year. We just finished, like you mentioned, our gala, as well as the Chicago Health and Medical Career Citywide Student Conference. It's every third Saturday. We'll have it again, every third May, every third May. And next year, it's going to be even bigger and better. But one of the things, and we'll talk about that at a future time, but one of the things I'm super excited about is our Hot Shots and Top Docs 3-on-3 basketball conference that we have that's coming up on Sunday, August the 4th. Again, it's Sunday, August the 4th. We'll get some video footage so you can see that shortly. But it's going to be at Loyola Stritch Medical School, or the Loyola Center for Fitness. And it's going to be an excellent opportunity to expose our 5th through 8th grade little boys to careers in medicine. We always say that you have to see it to be it. And there we go. We got a little footage there. You have to see it to be it. And so this is a great opportunity. If you have some 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade boys that are in your family, please go to the website and register. That is an awesome, amazing opportunity for our young boys. It's open to everyone, but our young boys of color are virtually absent from medicine, and this is an opportunity for them to play ball alongside some real ballers. Actually, they'll have a chance to visit the anatomy lab. They'll get a chance to learn stop the bleed, CPR, and all this stuff, believe it or not, is going to be happening all while they're playing basketball or in between games, and yet they're still going to have a great time. So that's Sunday, August the 4th. You can go to our website at www.iamabel.org, www.iamabel.org, to learn more about our Top Docs and Hot Shots 3-on-3 basketball tournament for 5th through 8th grade boys.
And please register for that. It's coming up very shortly. It's going to be a great event. We have local coaches coming out to help. So it's a good opportunity. So let people know. Even if you're not interested, let someone else know. What else do we have going on? We have a CPR.
We have a wonderful CPR program that's run actually by our students and you actually are one of our beloved instructors as well. All of our young mentees that are our young mentees, I should say, are actually running the program. Though the instructors are all college age and post-bac students who are teaching CPR and first aid across the city of Chicago. We're going to have a class on Saturday, July the 20th over at Rush. We still have some availabilities. What I'm super excited about, Corey, is this year we offered our first CPR in Spanish.
Right.
And that's going to be a great resource for some of our young people. And not just young people, but for all ages. And that class, though, unfortunately, is completely field. But we do have some availabilities for non-Spanish speakers same day. So just go on the website, www.iamabel.org, and you can register. We have a few slots available for English-speaking attendees if you're interested in learning CPR. That's just one of the many things that we're doing.
You know, we've been doing that for years. The CPR initiative is huge. And I would say that that's one of the biggest things that people are like, oh, yeah, you know, I Am Able. They always have a CPR event going on. A lot of philanthropy work with that is great. The community loves it. And, you know, Chicago has a huge issue with gun violence. And, you know, a lot of people really do not know what to do when that happens. So instead of staying complacent, we try to give people skills and the tools they need to be more proactive in the community.
A lot of people who may or may not know, we started I Am Able Foundation after basically gun violence attacked or hit our own family. And I started I Am Able Foundation, and a part of the early inspiration was the CPR, first aid, and stop the bleed. What's involved and what the foundation has evolved into is something so much more, but we're thankful for that early program, which has now blossomed considerably. There's so many young people who've been blessed by the CPR program, and now we're expanding it to seniors, and many times we offer it completely for free. And a lot of times, if you try to go get certified in CPR, it's pretty costly. But as part of our outreach, we do this, and we're super excited that we're now extending this to our Latino community as well, and helping them get the skills that they need to save a life in their own community. That is what we're about, making a difference in the community. Each one has to reach one. That's I Am Able Foundation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, we do classes in the west suburbs. We've been all the way up to the north side, even the south side over in the Inglewood neighborhood. And,
Certainly.
And we're all over the place, all over Chicago. So we'll be in your neighborhood soon. Please keep a lookout and register for a class if you have the availability. But today, we have an exciting episode. We usually talk about vaccines and immunization for children. But do you know that you need it too as an adult? So we're going to talk about that and some of the science behind it. So to start, what's the adult immunization schedule? Tell us about that, the ones who don't know about it.
Okay, so I want to throw this out here. There's a lot of people, we're living in an anti-vaccination climate, and you can have one opinion or another, but this is the Centers for Disease Control recommendation. And what this screen that you're looking at right now is just simply looking at the vaccinations that actually are needed amongst adults. There are some surprising ones. Haemophilus influenza type B vaccine. That's one that we call it the HIB. We usually do those for infants. I trained in internal medicine as well as pediatrics, so at one point double board certified in both pediatrics and internal medicine. And I remember my babies, and I used to know that schedule off the cuff, and it never was for adults. And so we are now looking at Haemophilus influenza type B vaccine. Why? We see it a lot of times in respiratory disorders.
Sure.
We've actually captured that in isolates from patients who've had pneumonia. So that's one of the vaccinations that's now on the adult schedule. You can always talk, and I want to say this at the outset, that talk to your doctor about which vaccinations are appropriate for you. But we're going to focus today a little bit on some of the more standard ones.
Sure.
But Haemophilus is one. Hepatitis A vaccine related to liver infection. So hepatitis means inflammation of the liver. Caused by, in this particular case, hepatitis A. So there's a vaccination to protect against that. Sometimes you'll find this virus in food, in fecal sources as well,
Sure.
and this is one vaccine that's helpful. Hepatitis B is another one. Another one that we don't have a vaccination for quite yet is hepatitis C, and so those are a few. Human papillomavirus, influenza, meningococcal, we've heard about meningitis, pneumococcal, tetanus, I think many of us are familiar with that, varicella, and varicella zoster.
Why would you say that most adults don't know about these vaccines and like this schedule. We all know about the children, right? From when they're 6 months and up, right? We gotta get them on the vaccine.
Even earlier.
For the influenza at least. They can't do it less than 6 months, right?
Exactly.
So for adults, why don't we know about this schedule?
Yeah, I think number one, adults don't go to the doctor. And I think adults were dying for the opportunity to get away from the shot schedule. And once they got away from it, they thought that they were safe.
Right.
But I think what is happening with medicine, and I think this is a good part of medicine, is that we're trying to move more towards prevention. And that's not been a focus of medicine. And it's certainly not enough of a focus right now. I think that a lot of times we don't think about prevention, and we have a very knee-jerk response to everything. So you get sick, you go to the hospital. You have chest pain or you have heart attack, then you go get, you get your arteries open back up. So I think now what's happening is that there's just more of an awareness. Many of these vaccines were already there, but there's also a bigger push for these preventative types of measures, for sure.
Put the image up.
So this is a pretty cool slide, and we'll talk a little bit more about influenza in a bit. But and if there's those who have want to call in and have questions, we welcome your calls. But a couple of the vaccines are influenza, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more coming up. But I know you think that it's too early to talk about it, but truth be told, some patients are receiving their vaccinations for influenza in late August, early September. So that's going to be coming up just at the end of the summer. So that is something that is done annually, and sometimes it's even done twice in a season, early and later, for those who may need a little bit more help with immunity. Another one is tetanus. We all are kind of familiar with the tetanus shot. Most of us do not remember to get the tetanus shot until we walk and step our feet on top of a rusty nail.
Or they make you at work.
Exactly, or they make you do it at work. But actually, the tetanus shot, we should get a Tdap, which also covers diphtheria and acellular pertussis. So it will help with pertussis. We talked about whooping cough. You need that just once in life so far. By the way, these can evolve. Over time, we learn things that we didn't know before. But you get the Tdap once in life, and then after that, you should get a TD booster every 10 years. That way, before you step on the rusty nail, you can make sure that you don't get sick from tetanus infection. So that's another one. Another one is the measles, mumps, and rubella shot. With the MMR, typically, if you were born before 1957, you probably only need one. At least that's the thought. But if you were born a little bit later, then you would probably get 2. One interesting thing about that, and I think you can attest to that, if you happen to work in a clinical environment, like a hospital or nursing home, they'll check. If you tell them that I've had the shot, they'll sometimes do titers and prove whether or not you actually have immunity against it. And hey, you all been hearing it in the news how there's been a resurgence of measles.
Definitely.
So, and that's because, for many, many reasons, but we have kind of gotten away from the vaccination, and we've also seen that some people have had some waning of their immunity. Right. So it definitely needs to be checked. Another couple of interesting ones, and we won't talk about all of them today, but I think the human papillomavirus is pretty interesting. And what I think is more important for the general audience to know is that men are getting the human papillomavirus or the HPV or Gardasil vaccination as well up to the age of 26 because so men, they're not offering it. Again, it's about educating. So you should, upon hearing this, if you're under the age of 26 and you didn't get the Gardasil shots, because the boys should be getting them at the same time as the girls, somewhere between 11 and 12. We kind of understand the purpose of the Gardasil shot, and it's to prevent largely like human papillomavirus, which can sometimes lead to cervical cancer. I think one of the reasons that we use it in men also is to, in general, totally reduce the presence of the virus, which will definitely bring down the burden of the disease. And they've already seen some outstanding numbers. And there also is some protection for the men themselves. So if you are under the age of 21 for men, and you might be from a high risk group, meaning based on sexual practices as a male, that might be a vaccination that you should definitely consider. Another one we're going to talk about a little bit in a little bit more depth on today is influenza, the dreaded flu shot. A lot of people don't like getting it, but I'll never forget the year that we didn't get your vaccination. And you remember what happened.
Yeah, I got super sick.
Terribly sick. I think fever's up to 104.
104, delusion, didn't know, dizzy.
Right, and I was out of the country.
Yeah.
And I'll pretty much never forget that. And I think that for me, that was my own personal reminder of how important the influenza vaccination is, especially in populations like yourself who has asthma,
right?
And other populations. So let's talk a little bit about influenza shots, who needs them, what kind to get, when to get them, and so forth. I think that one of the important things to realize is that influenza, first of all, let's just put this out here. A lot of people say, I got the influenza, the flu shot, and I still got the flu. I think it's super important first of all, for people to remember that the flu shot is specifically influenza. Not every type of virus, not even every strand, unfortunately, that can actually cause a problem. Right. Super important to understand that it is fighting against one of the more virulent ones that are out there, and that's
most common as well.
And one of the most common, absolutely, influenza. So, what are some of the reasons for the influenza flu shots? They help your body develop the antibodies to actually fight the flu that's caused by the influenza virus. It takes about 2 weeks to work. So for those of you who think that the flu shot caused your problem, it's important to understand, especially if you get sick, you probably were getting sick with some sort of virus, because it takes a little bit of time for it to actually kick in. It's also important to know that there's a couple of there's many different varieties or manufacturers of the flu vaccine, but it's very important to understand that there's two major types. There's the nasal mist kind, which a lot of people, would like, and then there are the intramuscular shots. And the other key things about flu shots is that they should be given somewhere, ideally between September and October. Many clinics start a little bit earlier.
Definitely.
So some of the benefits is that. Well, let's talk a little bit about this one particular one. So when we talk about the benefits of the influenza vaccination, we know that it's probably prevented, according to the CDC, about 5.3 million infections, and this is looking at the year 2016 to 2017. Pretty important. One thing that we also know is that we have, for the convenience of our patients, there's a couple of different types. There's the flu mist, and there's, a lot of people hate getting the shot. Right. I actually, even as a doctor, was actually afraid to take my shot for a couple of years. I'm embarrassed to admit to, because one of my medical assistants, it felt like she shot me directly in my nerve. It felt like that. And I think we all have our own horror stories with shots and all those kinds of things. But I do get my vaccination. I think is pretty important. But because of the fear of needles, it's important to know that there is an option to get a flu mist, but there are some risks and some contraindications for some people. And we could talk a little bit about that. But first, let's talk a little bit about who should get the flu shot. Pretty much is just about everybody, but not every single person. But, based on your age, most people should get a flu shot. As I kind of suggesting, there's a couple of different types. There is an inactivated influenza vaccine, which is approved for kids or babies as young as 6 months of age. They can get it, but not before. And then, certainly it's also recommended the one that's intramuscular, that is for pregnant women and those who have some chronic health conditions as well. Who should not get a flu shot? Well, if you are under 6 months of age, you just a little bit too young to get the flu shot. Also, if you've had some life-threatening allergies to the flu vaccine, or even if we'll talk a little about this a little bit later, but specifically if you've had some serious allergic reactions. So let's talk a little bit about the nasal spray. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of people would like the nasal spray, but it's that convenience comes at a price. It's not for everybody. One thing is you have to be over the age of 2 years old, and you have to be younger than 50. So, and this all speaks to, immunocompromised state for the most part. So you can't be immunocompromised. So who would that be? Patients that might be using high doses of steroids, or they might be on other immunosuppressants for disorders like sarcoidosis or lupus. That's not to say that those patients could never take it, but certainly if they are in an immunocompromised state or taking medicines that immunocompromise them, they can't take the nasal spray. Pregnant women, they are off limits. This particular preparation is off limits to them, and certainly people with a history of Guillain-Barré, they say within 6 weeks, but I would say within never.
Well, explain what immunocompromise means for those who...
So immunocompromise is really where your body just is unable to fight on its own. And basically, it's just a setup for an attack for a preparation like the nasal mist, because it is what we call a live attenuated virus. So it is a very weakened virus, and it is the goal of it is to actually promote immunity and to rev up your own immune system. But these particles can cause a little bit of a problem in those whose bodies are unable to fight on their own.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and vaccines are something that, like we said before, we think about children, but adults need them too. I actually just got a vaccine a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I needed that. Mm-hmm. Never even thought about it.
Right.
I went to the just a regular checkup, and they told me, yeah, you're up to date. You need this shot, right, as we call it. So I didn't know, as someone that's in the field of medicine, right, I should have known it myself. So I can't even imagine how many people don't know how many vaccines that they do need, right? So we can reduce these illnesses that are, kind of coming back up, revving up again, right? Like measles. And what else do you want to talk about as far as immunizations and vaccines?
A couple of other immunizations to keep in mind is like the pneumococcal immunization. That is sometimes given is definitely given in our younger babies. We call it the Prevnar, and it is a certain combination of particles that help boost immunity. And then we have it's two different types. There's one that's a 23 valent, and then there's one that's a 13 valent, and those are pretty commonly used definitely in our elderly population, for sure. If you're over the age of 65, you would definitely want to get that one. Another one that is sometimes ignored, but it is recommended, is the chickenpox one, or the shingles, because for those of you who may not know what that is, many of us had chickenpox when we were younger. And for some, that virus likes to hide out in nerves, in nerve cells, and creep out along those nerve cells during a time in your life when you can be a little bit more immunocompromised, such as when you're getting older. Right. So one of the mechanisms for trying to fight off that is to also have the varicella, or the shingles. They call it shingles because that's the way it seems to present as an older person.
Right.
Doesn't seem to recur all over in a generalized fashion. It actually comes along an extremely painful nerve root.
Definitely painful.
So and that's shingles. Right. So that's another one.
So we're happy that you guys are able to tune in today. All this information, please share it. Share the video. Let people know, hey, adults need their vaccines. They need to be up to date in their immunization. Please let everyone know. And check out the IamAbel.org website. We have a lot of good information We have the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. We have CPR classes coming up. Almost every month we have some CPR classes.
A couple times a month, sometimes, yep.
Yeah, a couple times a month, and we offer them in Spanish. We're gonna try another language soon. Hopefully, this year. Maybe we can get some Polish going on for the Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely, this would be the perfect city for it.
Definitely.
And I would like to throw out just a little bit about I Am Abel Foundation. It is a wonderful organization. I am actually surprised at how God has revealed Himself in this foundation and the work that is being done. It's I feel like it's God's work. It is God's work because we are actually raising our next generation of healthcare heroes. Coming up in November, we're going to open up recruitment for our next batch of high school, college, and post-bac students. They are now completely engaged, and we are full throttle into an amazing year. Our physician mentors are bomb. And we would love to help another generation be mentored by physicians who really and truly care about the things that we're talking about today, but also about our community. So definitely. Check us out, www.iamabel. I Am Abel.